Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in again. Big shout outs to all the new subscribers and everything that's going on. And with that being said, let's get this show on the road. So, I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys a little bit about nostalgia and why we're all so yearning for it. I mean, it's use to always be sought after and looked at. Usually, cases of nostalgia take about 30 years, 25. I mean, you look at classic cars, that's typically, what they range. They start becoming a classic at 25 years. So, yeah, 25 to 30 things become nostalgic for most people. So, yeah, just want to hop on here and talk to you guys about it and, let you know that this has been the case forever. People in the 80s romanticized the 50s, people in the 2000s romanticized the 80s, and now in 2025, we are romanticizing, the 2000s. But people are already nostalgic. I mean, I've been nostalgic for the 2000s for years. It's an era that just feels like, happened during the last week's lunch break. Basically, time goes by so fast. I blinked my eye and I was 5 yesterday. So why did that happen? I mean, we could break it down. It's, partially psychology, it's partially the culture, it's partially the chaos also behind it because I mean, a lot of people have this sense that time isn't the same anymore. Time isn't real, right? What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, our neurons stop firing as fast and as quick, and things get less responsive. So, over time, the 2000s don't really feel that far away because, time has really been in an airplane mode since, 2020, a lot of people will say. The pandemic bent the timeline, like a pretzel, and, you know, everyone just feels like, so your sense of time is getting cooked. That's just the best way to break it down because nostalgia doesn't care about numbers, right? It cares about contrasts compared to the stress of right now. So even those janky little flip phones that we used to have by every manufacturer, Motorola, LG, they seem like this era of magicalness because we weren't the way we are now. Life was actually different back then, right? I mean, I think we all can remember that. We can notice that and say, hey, things aren't the same. And that's kind of why people love, the 2000s because it was that last analog, childhood that was blended with the first digital adulthood, right? I mean, I didn't grow up with tablets and screens and things like that. I only got into that in my late teens, early 20s. And, it was that sweet spot where, whoopsie, where you could just disappear for from sunrise to sunset, riding your bikes, hanging out with your friends, never having to worry about coming home, nobody tracking you. The thing that told you to go home was the street lights and maybe your mom or dad yelling. You also even had MySpace drama and LimeWire viruses just to keep things interesting. We all thought we were downloading the right song, and it was really just a virus or Soldier Boy, right? Um, your phone didn't spy on you. Let's just call it what it is, right? I mean, that's how our ads get to us the second we start talking about things. Your ringtone was either Soldier Boy or, a beeping sound or a frog, or you paid for a ringtone, right? We weren't reachable like we are now 24/7, right? We had some agency over us where we could just not have to deal with stuff and cut the cord. I mean, every photo lived on a random HP computer that was in the central part of the house, and until the computer broke, or your mom decided to get a new computer, right? I mean, it was just chaos back then, but it was a simpler kind of chaos for us all. So, I mean, nostalgia arrives faster these days because we're in the digital age, right? I mean, and back then, nostalgia took about 20 or 30 years to cycle through. Today takes about less than 5 minutes, and there's a couple of reasons to that. I'll let you know, and it's mostly contrived by social media, which funny enough, I'm here on social media talking about this, but TikTok splits up decades into basically micro aesthetics, and the algorithms are constantly changing, and they recycle old music, trends, and even memes, and everything's cyclical, right? Fashion, music, a lot of things, values. I don't know. I mean, streaming platforms revive every childhood show, like the Pokemon show or Johnny Bravo. You know, the the internet just didn't wait for time to pass by. It manufactures nostalgia. Understand that. I mean, it's like a dopamine hit on demand that you're getting every time you pick up that phone. So, I mean, you're not remembering 2007 because it was so long ago and it's a time you yearn to go back to. It's not that. No, you're remembering it because TikTok won't stop playing metro stations, Shake It, and all the other things you see that remind you of your childhood. Let's not kid facts. Let's just be real. Modern life is exhausting. Okay, we all get this. We are all living this. So at least we could do is be honest about how it was in the past. That the 2000s, for how crazy they were in their aspects, it was still a peaceful time, it felt like, because everything now is expensive, stressful, and everybody feels deeply unserious, right? I know. I can relate to that. Hell, I remember in the 2000s when gas was 150 and the day creeped above $3. One of my friends' dad says, "This is the day you're never ever going to forget," and I still remember that. Rent was $700. College was a suggestion, not a financial trap. You were able to get in on the bottom floor of a company, and actually, that story of mailroom to executive, that still existed back then. But no one expected you to have six different income streams from hustling and grinding. So, and your job, it just never decided to text you on the weekends. Now, well, now we're nostalgic for the 2000s because it was the last time the future really felt bright, that we had optimism and hope, right? That we believed things would change for our benefit. Back then, we thought, wow, by 2025, we're probably going to have flying cars like the Jetsons and robots. But now it's like, wow, by 2026, eggs might be like $10, $11. Who knows? I know the thing that really keeps me in check with my nostalgia is, my early childhood. It hits hard when you're a young adult. Now, people who grew up in the 2000s, have reached the age where, adulthood is just, how do I say this politely? Bills, emails, joint pain that somehow started earlier than you thought it would, more HR departments that keep saying, "We're a family. We're a family here." How many normal families do you know? I don't. The majority of them are toxic. So when adulthood is overwhelming your brain, it goes, hey, remember the Cartoon Network shows at 6 p.m. we used to watch, like Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, the dinosaurs. That was all great stuff. We love that stuff, and that's what nostalgia is. It's a coping mechanism. It's a mental vacation to a time when your biggest problems was whether your Tamagotchi died. I mean, that was. I remember people would flip out. You let my pet die. I'm gonna have on vacation or something. So, I mean, that just goes to show you how the 2000s were like the last united pop culture era, that we had. And what do I mean by that? Well, again, in the 2000s, everyone seemed to watch the same shows. I mean, we had American Idol, we had TRL, we had Jersey Shore, we had, uh, MTV shows of all variety. And at that same time, everyone seemed to listen to the same music. Rihanna, Usher, Fall Out Boy, Eminem. I know I'm still listening to several of those, so is my wife. So, I mean, today culture is not shared, it's algorithmically fractured into 100,000 niches. It felt communal, and community often does feel good. But today your coworker might be famous on an app that you've never heard of, right? And so it just goes to show you where we are in the sense of community these days. You know, before the internet took over everything, um, you actually had to use your brain more. You actually had to get around, and you weren't allowed to just pull out a phone every time you were stumped, right? Because the 2000s were the last time that the internet happened to be fun. I remember going to all these fun random websites like eBaum's Worlds, random stupid games, Newgrounds. It all felt like we were all able to do what we wanted to do, and no one was trying to steal our data or our identity or our attention span, right? It was all up for grabs equally. Now you used to log on to talk to friends and not to be monetized. Remember the little AOL instant messenger thing we all would go crazy for? You weren't doom scrolling. You were playing flash games again, like addictinggames.com or Newgrounds, right? I remember a couple of my friends made flash video games, and we all had fun kind of competing on those. But that era of comfort, that era feels comforting because it was the internet without consequences. That's the best way I can, I think, describe it. So I'm going to start to wrap up here, but let me just say, why are we nostalgic for 2000s? Well, there's a couple of reasons. It really represents, simpler problems that we all used to have collectively and could get over. Lower stakes. The game wasn't, stacked against us. We had a chance, and we had skin in the game. Shared culture was, great. Everybody thought the same and had the same general beliefs. And affordable life. One person could have a single, income and take care of a family. And that's kind of the last time the future looked so bright. It's not that the 2000s are old. It's just that today's overwhelming. And the past often feels like home for us to go to a safe place. So I want to finish up by saying, if you grew up in the 2000s, if you grew up in the 2000s, I mean, you may not have known it yet, but you lived the tutorial level of life. So once again, thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate you. All of you coming here, listening, checking out the shorts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you liked it, please consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe.
Cash rules everything around me. Cash rules everything around me. Cash rules everything around me. Get the money. Dollar bill, y'all. Dollar bill, y'all. Dollar bill, y'all. Yeah. Dollar bill, y'all. Dollar bill, y'all. Yeah. I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side. Staying alive was no job. Second hand.